that. And that's a reason right there to get together with some people to figure out how to get it. You know, if your neighbor is moving into the middle income neighborhood and they got Range Rovers and 40-bedroom house and pool in the back now, it's kind of hard to live next door and not have nothing, and you're 16 and not much guidance, or you got people whispering in your ear. So just kind of be aware of where you live and how you behave, and then I think that's at least the first step. You know, last but not least, I think that's a great idea about the neighborhood organization coming together again, not just to solve problems, but also to celebrate. Because, I mean, I've never been to a black party in Evanston on this side of town. I promise you, never my whole life. I've been away from here for 15 years, and I'm 56 next week. So
Happy birthday.
How soon we forget.
I had to I had to count. I was like, how old is my son? Okay, yeah. So
Yeah, I wanted to correct you. There's not gangs. It's like gangs is like recycling. Like these that's going on here is split block. You see what I'm saying? They have their own little.
but aren't they organized?
No,
They're not?
no. They have their own thing. Me, Michelle, you and her, we're cliques. You and them over there, y'all got your own little clique. Now we get into one of you, there it goes. You see what I'm saying? They have their own little clique. Some family members can't even come together because their kids in different little cliques that the stuff is going on. It's not gangs. They have their own little clique, but they have their own little names and their own little cliques. So they're not really. I mean, they get considered as gang members because they got their own little group, but it's not like how the Vice Lords and the gangsters was, the disciples was a long time ago.
Right.
They have little cliques. Like they take like. Hoagland is that's if everybody hang on Hoagland, that's the Hoagland thing. Like everybody used to be on Jackson, that was J-side clique. Like if you can't come over there if you're not part of the, you see what I'm saying? A part of the group or part of the whatever they got going on. So it's not like gangs, it's like they got their own little clique.
Also, I would like to say the difference between the gangs and the cliques. Our gangs are more organized. When you have gangs, you have people who are at the top, and there's an order of command.
And kids
Like
and
whether you
women
think about
was
it.
off
What
limits.
cliques? Right, and there were
Men,
people.
kids and women was off limits. They couldn't touch us.
So then
Now,
this
they
is
don't care.
So these are families.
These are families, friends, anything,
then
and
it's something
there's
that-
no one who controls them. And
then-
even when I was having this event, I will, like I said, I have things that I want to talk about. What people was telling me, oh, it's not no point of doing this, and it was like the older people gonna be like, these kids don't listen. I'm not coming out here because these kids ain't gonna listen anyway. So the ones who are gang members and the ones who do have that, they're like, it's not no point because these younger kids, they don't listen. And I can say that. I mean, everybody here can definitely say the generation of kids now, they're doing a lot more than what we were doing. And I guess I'm not a part of y'all. I'm probably a little bit younger than y'all, but even me being 30, I look at some of these teenagers and I'm like me personally, we speaking of family, I literally had to snatch my cousin up because she's yelling, screaming, hollering, cussing in my grandmother's house. And I'm like, if I would have did that, every adult in this house would have jumped on me. And then it's just like, it's like different. So it is a difference. So I do understand the difference between cliques and gangs. It is definitely a difference. So, and that's another reason why I'm asking the community to come out, because the community can say what this is. Like she's bringing it out now. We were saying this is gang violence. We had a lot of talk about gangs. It's not just gangs. Some of these are just cliques. It's not even a gang. You know, it's not even, some of these people aren't hooked up with an actual gang. They're just out here. They have a competition.
From the cliques out. There has to be some sort of, there has to be something that they gain from it, or it's a human.
The thing is, let me do this so I can get my group of names. You know what I'm saying?
And then some of it's just friendship. Like,
Real close friends, they grew up together.
I don't know if any of y'all know, you know, cop was killed because he went to go fight for his friend's chain. Like, it was just my friend. And that's a lot of things too, like how you were saying. I was talking to you, and it's like I don't have any family, I don't have any friends, I'm not close to my friends. If I don't have any family, I don't have anybody, but I have these friends now. So now these friends are my whole life. So if she come and disrespect you, my friend, I'm gonna have to handle that. And it don't matter how I handle it. I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do. And then when I do that, somebody in her family or one of her friends are gonna come back to do something, and then it's just, and that's what she was saying. Like, this is something, and it's just on, everybody wants to retaliate, because nobody's sitting down to think like, okay, well, this is happening because of this. Let's fix this. And I think, like, again, that's why I'm having this meeting. If somebody can say, oh, well, 1 and 1 equal 2, well, let's figure out if we can take this one out so we don't get to this. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm actually coming out.
Can I say something?
Can I go here and then here?
So the Chicago Tribune did a.
Can you speak up, Annie?
Sorry. All right. So the Chicago Tribune did a long investigation in an article. I think it was back in 2016 or 15, and it talked about how the Chicago police had created this clique problem because they had locked up the gang leadership in Chicago. So they did this targeted years and years and years of work and took down a ton of leadership and put them in prison, which then repressed a lot of the larger, more organized gangs, took the leadership away, and it created these smaller pockets of cliques where there isn't leadership. And so that is why we've seen the increased violence in Chicago that seems random and purposeless, because it is, but it was a direct result of the policing that took out leadership. And the reason why I say this is because they didn't. Chicago as an organization, as a government, did not address the root problem of what those kids were looking for. Right? Those kids need purpose, they need connection, they want family, they want friends, all the things that we want. They want those same things, and that's where they were getting them. So they took that out, and it made it worse. So until Evanston looks at that root problem of what do these kids want, how can we love them in a way that helps address that desire for relationship and connection and all those good things that we as human beings want, we're just going to keep passing the problem around. Thank you for letting me speak.
I just had a question.
Can you stand and speak?
And they were talking about this issue. And he said, if people, instead of just retaliating on their own, they just call up a detective. So I just thought,
I mean, that's okay. Can I answer that? I don't know how many of you were on the conversation that we had on Tuesday or Wednesday. If there was questions that were asked about that. There's always been a scarcity of the protection that if I go and I tell this, you know, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be protected? Because there are people who will, you know, retaliate and find out, oh, you got my cousin, you know, locked up, or this, that, and the third. So that is one of the things that were asked that wasn't completely addressed, but Cook, sorry, I don't know the chief Cook had answered it and said that they are systems for that, but he more so went into, they are building on it to let the people know what exactly will be done for them if they do come forward and say something. Because a lot of the times, as I said before, I'm not from Evanston, but I am from a place where there is a lot of gun violence, and everybody knows who did it. Everybody knows who did it, and the police are just sitting around like, unless somebody comes forward, if they don't have enough evidence, and I'm not making excuses for the police at all, but if they do not have enough evidence, there's no point of going and arrest them. I went to school for criminal justice, so I do know, I understand that side of it. If they don't have enough evidence, just knowing is not enough. So that is something that coming together as a community will also help, because the people of the community can tell the police what it is exactly that you can do to make me feel safe, for me to be able to tell you what it is that I know. So there are different things like that, but it do at the same time has to be something in place for them. Me as I'm here, I'm a single mother, I have 2 kids. I don't want no gun violence, I don't. But if I see you kill her, and I know that, but there's a chance that you might come after me, I can't say, oh, long as she gets justice, it's cool, because I can give her justice and then my 2 kids, you know what I'm saying? So that is a part of the conversation. It is something, again, that's why I have these suggestion boxes of anything that you can say, well, if I had seen something, this would make me feel safe. So if you want to put that in there, if you have any suggestions, anything like that, that's also stuff that you can put in there, because yes, people do have to say something. They do have a tip line. If we have a tip line, it's a text tip line. I shared it on my page. I know Robin has it on her page. I know another alderman has it on their page, where you don't even have to, say something. Even with the text, everybody knows how technology goes. So maybe something different, like something else that people can use to be able to say something if they know something. But it's not even just saying, okay, so-and-so killed them, I know they did it. You have to, and then sometimes people will have to come into the court and testify. Right, so I see y'all faces when I said that, so y'all understand that it's a community effort. What we're asking for, what we're standing here for, is a community effort. And unless we get it together as a community, we're not going to do it. And I don't want to keep jumping in between people, but I see your hand, so you can go next.
Okay, I just wanted to, this is going to sound hopelessly naive.
Stand up.
Okay, all right. This is going to sound hopelessly naive, but what if the police officers are more involved and know the people in the community better? Is that just a pipe
That
dream?
is something that I think.
Can I just say, when I grew up, there were two main juvenile officers for grade school and middle schools, West Calamese, and I don't know Officer Delino's first name. And I was not afraid of them. And they behaved like parents because they lived here. Our police don't live here. Our police, their kids don't go to school with our kids. They don't go to PTA meetings with us. There's no vested interest in this town. There's a vested interest in a paycheck. But those aren't our police. That's not our people. They don't know us. And most of all, these cliques don't know them. And they don't have relationships with them. I don't want to live in a police state. I don't want the police to take care of every single community problem that exists. That's not what the police are for. And that's why they have so much power now. We depend on them to do everything for us. We are, like I wrote before, that this town, the majority of this town has master degrees. And we can't figure out how to solve our problems. It can't be just the police. The police are not the answer. The police can only police. Police show up after the crime. The police can police. We have to that's what we're here for. Maybe we need to have more than one meeting, but we got to come up with how to fix it.
So are you saying that for the police to be a human being, policeman, to be a part of the community is unrealistic?
No, it's very realistic, because tons of cities and towns have a rule that says that you have to live here in order to police it.
And that does work better.
Right. Like I can't be a teacher in Chicago unless I live in Chicago. Yeah. So that then not only do I have a vested interest, guess what? The money that I get paid stays in the place where I live. That has a lot to do with community development. So all I'm just saying is that the police are supposed to be I went to school and had officer-friendly meetings. They were taught that they were officer-friendly, right? And I haven't had any bad interactions with Evanston Police Department. But I don't know anybody on it either. I used to, but I've been gone a long time. But the point is, how many of you know? How many people in here know someone on the police department? Like, you know them. Not like, hi, officer so-and-so. You know, okay, look, do you see how many hands went up? Yeah. And how many people are standing here? Right. And are they here? No. Right. So then we're not getting to know them, and they're not getting to know us. Is that who you want to depend on? Any louder?
And your experiences? As someone who's worked my whole career in the criminal punishment system, I do have some experience on that side, and we've seen that the police don't solve crimes, or they don't prevent crimes.
Right.
They react to crimes. The police system is set up they're not set up to help neighborhoods. They're set up to punish. We do know, though, some about what works, and like you're saying, it's relationships. Building relationships with folks in the community outside of the police system. We see organizations like Mask in North Lawndale. We see organizations like Circles and Ciphers in Rogers Park. We see organizations like Kevin Brown's work here in Evanston. Yeah. And we know that that kind of work, where we're building real deep relationships with our neighbors, those work. Those reduce crime. Policing is designed to react to crime. It's not designed to reduce crime.
I agree.
Hello, Mayor.
Louder, please. She wants to know, how do we get it so that police officers who work here live here? Like,
So
we got
she
the
repeated
mayor.
the question, and I'm gonna. When someone else is
I've gotten that question many
times.
times.
Can't hear. I have a loud
Oh,
voice.
good.
I'll
Can
be
you
able to
answer it?
repeat,
Yeah.
anything.
he can answer it for you.
We've got the mayor.
You have the mayor.
Okay, hello. All right, come on over here. Hi everyone. I'm Steve Haggerty. It's nice to see you all. How many of you were on the call the other night, the community meeting, just to show hands?
Hey, Joe. How are you?
Who's the young woman that organized? Can you speak up? Okay, I will. Okay, thank you. You've lived here like a couple years.
2 years. Yes.
So, can you remind me of your name?
Michel'le Harris.
Michel'le?
Mimi is mine.
Mimi. Okay. So, on the call the other night that we had, Mimi said, I've only lived here 2 years. I thought it would be good. I'm going to organize a little thing over at Butler Park. And, come on out if you want to come out. And I don't know about you, Mimi, but I moved to Evanston 20 years ago because my wife got into graduate school at Northwestern. I did not know one person in this city. I didn't know anyone. And I would meet people. Our daughter was born a couple years later after we moved here. And I never felt like I had really a sense of community. I lived in a condominium. And even though we lived in a condo, we didn't really know that many people. I had a job where I had to travel a lot. And then we bought a house in Evanston, and we had our first child. And I would go to the park, and I would meet people at the park. And I'd always have these pleasant conversations, but we still didn't know exactly who each other was necessarily in the neighborhood, particularly for the new people that were moving into the neighborhood. And so I remember we organized, and there had been a block party, and so we organized all these younger families, the block party. And it became like quite an affair. And 200 people would come to this every single year. And before we did the block party, I decided like we should have a neighborhood directory. We should know when I'm at the park and my kids are playing or whatever, and I talk to somebody, what was their name or the kid's name? So we put this directory together. And I went around to every single door and I knocked and I said, hey, would you like to put this? I had a couple people slam the door in my face and say, get out of here, I don't want to. But people this day, and we moved a couple blocks, people this day still have the directory. And another family said, we want to update the directory. And I share this story because it's a story about community, and it's a story about knowing your neighbors, and there's tremendous value in that. And that may already exist here. I know Alderman Holmes, and is Robin here? Is Robin here? No. Okay, but I know Robin and Alderman Simmons and Alderman Holmes have been very big about, forming block clubs and all of that, because when there is violence in your community, and I am as upset about that as everybody here, when there is violence, it's a whole of community response and recovery to that. And I mentioned that the other night. And that's where, a really strong neighborhood network helps at times like these. And so, anyway, so I wanted to come out here for a little bit and be with you all. To the question about the police.
Behind you.
Yeah, you had asked a question about police. So we get this question a lot. And the premise of the idea is, if police officers live in the community in which they serve, then there'll actually be a higher level of community policing because they know people in the community. They live in the community. And so we have had that conversation at a higher level in Evanston. There is an expectation that you live in Evanston. So the police chief obviously lives right around here and all of that. We haven't instituted that as a community, that police officers or firefighters even have to live in Evanston. And the reason for that is one of affordability. As we all know, Evanston is not. We're doing something, but the macro trend.
Are you really?
Yes,
Because you
that's
moved
fair.
here and stayed in a condominium and then bought a house. And then approved a bunch of condominiums that nobody can afford. So then that's kind of the problem, isn't it? I mean, because officers should be able to afford those condominiums.
Yeah, but okay. So I think it's a great topic. So when I believe in economists would tell you and everything else, that if you have more housing units available in a community, you should have more price points in a community. Okay, it's just sort of supply and demand. If we can increase the supply, we should have more price points. So you could say, and we could say, forget it, we're not going to build this development downtown. And we have an inclusionary housing ordinance, and we say that a certain percentage of those have to be affordable within it. Okay, and we could go into a whole discussion about that because there's something called the missing middle out there. So we could say, nope, we're not going to build it, but we also have taxes that are going up in Evanston. And so when we take a parcel of land that's underutilized and a development goes up in it, it generates more tax for Evanston.
So then at this point, it's more important.
I don't want to cut anybody off. If there is one person she wanted to speak first, I'm asking that everybody. I want this to be a conversation. I do understand that there's a lot of emotions going on. There's a lot of things going on. As I said before, I went to school to be a lawyer. I understand the fundamentals of debate, but I really, really want this first conversation just to be a conversation. So here, I want everybody's ideas to be heard, but I just don't want it to be a lot of just back and forth. I do want everybody to be heard, so if everybody can.
Can we get the reason, like the bottom line reason? So the bottom line reason is the reason why we don't have officers, a rule that officers can live in Evanston is because Evanston is so unaffordable for officers, and we need our tax base.
It's because
That's kind of the bottom line?
No. The bottom line is we want to pull from the best people that are available who want to be police officers, and we don't want to limit that just to people that can afford to live in Evanston. There may be great people that live in Skokie or Des Plaines, right? That are police officers.
Isn't part of
Okay, 1 second. We have this lady right here. Just put your hand up, and I will see you, and I will try to get you.
I don't know. This is pretty fabulous, the Q&A that the good mayor's words seems to be generating. But thank you. I would like to take a minute, I don't think this is off topic, to just say I raised my two 30-somethings here as well. And like you, I came here with a spouse for graduate school. That was 40 years ago, and like you, I spent a few of those on the East Coast after my very lucky kids graduated ETHS. They are in Brooklyn on the front lines of Black Lives Matter and Queer and Trans Lives Matter. Some of those huge movements, they and their friends are what makes those things happen. And so I get reminded every day how it is my turn to take a back seat, and how it is my white turn to start learning things that for all my education and all my worldly experience, and I've worked on 6 continents and blah, 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 and nobody cares right now, I still need to unlearn so much. But this isn't an academic meeting. This is about death and policing in Evanston, which after 40 years, which is almost more than half my life, just barely more than half my life, is my hometown. I'm from LA, grew up with a grandma in Watts, but that's also not to the damn point, pardon my French. We need to put in my son's word. He's talking to me while I'm here. He's a fashion photographer, and he's busy giving up his entire career and saying, I will never not shoot without at least one black assistant, and why in the heck are you commissioning me to shoot Serena Williams for your cover when I know 10 easily as qualified black brothers and sisters? But again, as much as I love telling stories like the mayor, what my son reminds me is the whole point. It's time to wash the white out. It's time to wash the white out of all the assumptions about who gets to say, about who gets to decide, about who should sit us all down and wait till we all understand how we got here. And I could talk forever, and I am loud, and I'm happy to repeat anything someone else can't hear that some of the softer voices say. Thank you.
I was going to say,
Louder.
I was going to say, and this has to do with the housing crisis. Isn't a large part of the reason that taxes are so expensive for the houses because Northwestern doesn't pay taxes?
I'm sorry. If anybody didn't hear what she said, I'm just going to try to repeat things so everybody can hear. She asked, is one of the reasons our property tax is so high because Northwestern, I guess the university, does not pay taxes. And the mayor, I believe, is going to answer this.
So,
And if anybody again,
real
just
quick,
raise
that is
your hand,
that is correct. The university doesn't pay taxes. No private universities pay taxes. Pretty much in the country under charters that were created in those states. So it's a state charter, and the rationale for that was the belief that education is so important that we're going to let these universities be created, okay, and people will be educated there, and that will be good for the country. And so that was the basis 150 years ago. Since then, we've had universities that have endowments like Northwestern's of 10 billion or more. And so lots of people are saying, hey, shouldn't universities now pay tax if they have that much? We also have 75 churches, right? The churches don't pay taxes. We've got a lot of other nonprofit organizations that don't pay tax. If that were to be changed, it has to be changed at the state level. It's not something that Evanston can all of a sudden impose and say, okay, Northwestern, you're going to have to pay tax. I will share with you this. So Northwestern, for the last 5 years, we've had a Good Neighbor Fund. It ended this year. It was just extended, and there was an announcement on Wednesday this week to a total of 1.5 million, and it used to be 1 million a year. And let's not get into a whole argument though. That's not enough. They should pay more. It should be larger because we could get into that whole argument. But it's going to be focused at 1 million, and then there's 500,000 in grants that sort of a committee is going to dole out. Is all going to be focused on racial equity. Is the focus of it. So, yep, that's the.
Yeah, I have a, can I help?
1 second.
okay.
Well, here, there, then. Okay, I'm sorry. I just moved here. With all due respect, you came in here and were saying the answer to this is people should form block clubs. You know, like that's all you got. What about financing from the city? You know, taking money as you know, we've all been talking about taking money from the police, taking money from building this enormous Robert Crown Center that wasn't. I mean, I live over there, so, and I grew up here, and so I know we needed a new community center. That Robert Crown still smelled the same as it did when I was in 7th grade. But why did it have to be like that? You know, those funds. I mean, you're putting it back on us. You know, or on. I don't live in this ward, but you're just saying, okay, the answer to this is to form block clubs feels really patronizing, and patronizing. That's thank you. That and inadequate.
Yeah. Well, I certainly didn't mean to sound patronizing on it. I wasn't asked a really. I forget the first question. It wasn't about, hey, Mayor, do you think we should defund the police or our budget or anything like that? So this was a community gathering. So that's where I went with this initial comment.
Police living in
And that was the first question, right? Once I was out here, somebody asked
Right,
about
no, I get that, but
the
then
police.
you came in and told the story how when you moved to Evanston, you formed block clubs, and it sounded like this is the answer. Like that is
A little tone deaf.
to me.
That's not the first time I've been called tone deaf.
You learn each time.
Yep. So,
So
I
anyway,
mean, all I can say is the the process, and we're about to go through it, and we here locally will go through it in about 9 months for local elections, for aldermen, for mayor, for clerk. Those decisions matter, right? It's that body that ultimately is being powered by all of us to vote on these issues, to hear from people, right, at public comment and at committee meetings and all of that. But ultimately, there are representatives, and so if people are really unhappy about the new Robert Crown, you say, well, anyone that supported that Robert Crown, I want you out. Or if you don't think that that we should be, that if I don't know where the budget will go with police. Okay, I have told everybody. I actually think because we're in the middle of a pandemic that we have a $12 million deficit right now that could potentially grow. That everything's going to be defunded. Okay, but that's not the defund the police movement. The defund the police movement is reducing what we spend on policing and investing it into whether it be social services or wealth generating areas for black families and other families in Evanston. And we can have that conversation, and we're starting to have that conversation in Evanston. We'll see with the budget, and that budget process will happen in September and October. And people can come out to the city council meetings, or there will be other meetings in the community, and voice your opinion on that. I can tell you, in the 3 years that I've been mayor, we haven't had anybody come out and say, "Hey, City of Evanston, you're spending too much money on police." Okay, now there's a whole movement going on and everything.
I have.
All right, Betsy, excuse me. So Betsy has come out there and spoken. But not many.
Not on healthcare itself. I mean, it's ridiculous. All right. So, I mean, you're right. Maybe people weren't coming out because they didn't know that it needs to be more transparent.
I mean, I can.
Honestly,
I'm sorry. I just
Yep. And I don't want to filibuster. It wasn't my point to come here and do anything.
I do know a lot of y'all are going to have questions for him, but I do not want to censor this. I'm not trying to be funny. Like I said, I haven't lived here long. I do not want this to be an attack on him. Because I want him to come again. So a lot of these questions are going to be directly towards him. But I also want to get everybody to be able to say what they need to say. We kind of jumped into this, and I wasn't even able to say the things that what this is supposed to mean and what my goal was for this. So I do hopefully want to get that done before we do that. But I do want to get on top of other people's questions. So we have 3, it looks like. Joe was next. I don't know everybody's name, so I'll probably be like pink shirt, blue shirt, whatever. We have Joe here, and then there was someone else. Sorry. Okay, so after Joe, I can't remember who the other person was. We're gonna go to
Maria.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Mimi, for organizing. Yes. I think this is a really unique space, and I think it'd be pretty neat if we could focus on what we can do as a community, as neighbors, as friends. We don't need to point fingers at the government. We don't need to point fingers at the police. But what can we do together? Unified action, things that we are responsible for. Like, we're not responsible for the city council. Yes, we can go to the meetings, and there's a space for that. But I hope that we don't center the meeting around just pointing fingers at things that are out of our control, because we do have a lot of power as neighbors, as friends. How do we educate our young ones? How do we educate our middle schoolers? How do we engage with the youth into something purposeful and positive? How do we help each other gain the skills and capacities to build a stronger community and just help each other as the world is struggling, as our city is struggling, as we're struggling? We can all be there for each other in different ways and have a positive influence in our hearts. So, thank you.
Okay, and then one more thing. Also, because we don't have, I passed out stuff to people. I also wanted to, because a lot of people are not on Facebook, and like I said, this is a community thing. I want the community to come in. If you have, or if you don't have one, if you want to leave your name and just an email, I am going to do a newsletter for this. Like I said before, this is something that's going to be continual. So if you, I don't want to take too much time. I want him to go first, and then I'm going to go in. I'm going to talk next, and I'm just going to speak on my goals and where we're going to go from here and what my expectations are. So I'm going to let him speak first. But I would like, if you want to be a part of the email list, or if you know somebody who's not here who wants information and you have their name and email, I would like y'all to put that on the index cards as well.
Okay, my name is Jerome Summers. I'm from the 5th Ward. I'm from this neighborhood. Grew up right here. Remember when this was all just prairie and it was critters out here and dragonflies, and you didn't like a girl, you catch a grasshopper and let them spit on her, you know, and if you liked them, you catch a lightning bug, you know, give them an earring or something. No fence was there. We go down to the canal and so forth. Anyway, I was born right there, community hospital. My mother thought she could make it. I was born on the dock. She didn't make it. I do have concerns. Actually, I got here late, so I don't know what all was discussed. But as far as the police are concerned, firemen are concerned, they make a lot of money, and you know, you need what you need. Okay, fine, I'm not griping about that. But they don't live here. And I think that if you work for the city of Evanston and you make it 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a year, you ought to live here. Now, I'm not trying to fire those who are already here, but grandfather, because you don't need a degree to be a policeman or a fireman or a lot of these other city, positions. They ought to live here. At least 80% ought to live right here in Evanston. And, you know, because they live in Streamwood and God knows where, Rolling Meadows, for God's sake. Secondly, Crown Center, okay, spent $1 zillion on that, but could not fund the saving of Family Focus building. I got a problem with that. I got a big problem with that. You know, when I grew up here in Evanston. My family's been in Evanston since the 1890s. Been in the 5th Ward since the 1890s, actually. I remember when the black community had laundromats, pharmacies, gas stations, bus companies, cab companies, grocery stores, doctors, lawyers, butchers, bakers, candlestick makers. Had a recreation center, had our own school, foster school. I went to foster school. I was probably one of the first 100 kids to get bused somewhere. I never knew about racism until I went to Lincolnville School for 1 year. But anyway, that was another story. The kids were great. The parents, they sucked, and the principals sucked, but the kids were great. They were kids like we were kids. Third issue. And maybe we can do something about this family-focused thing. I mean, I don't know what can be done. I know it was some arrangement was made earlier this year. I put up $1,000 of my own money towards saving that building, and it still got lost. Maybe we can work with that some kind of way. I don't know. The third issue I have is gentrification. I live here, right here. Right here, right there. See that big tree, big elm tree? My grandfather planted that tree. And, you know, if they're good neighbors, you know, white folks, you good neighbors, okay, good, great. You know, I'm cool with that. But understand, every time one of you move in, one of my dear neighbors who I love has to go. That's not a joyous occasion for me. And there's a lot of Latinos moving in here too. You know, I hate to sound all racist talking about this, but, you know, I'm just telling you how we feel about it. How I feel about it anyway. Latino families moving in, and a lot of times the black families and Latino families, they don't mix that much. But little Julio's out here playing with little Junebug all the time, right out here. You never see little Ian and little Livingston out here, never. They come here, they build big fences, 6 feet tall, grudge fences. And you got the big dogs, not little dogs, not the little carry around and put them in a stroller dogs. They got big dogs. And, you know, sometimes the young guys hanging out, yeah, they smoking some weed, yeah, they playing their music too loud, that's true. Talk to them, you don't have to call the police on them. You know what I mean? It's a problem. And, I don't know, man, I'm just kind of getting stuff off my chest here, but when I see my community turn into something that doesn't feel like home anymore, that's a problem for me. When black folks can't afford to live here, when I was growing up, they could only live here. That's a problem for me. So that's what I got to say. I don't know, you know, you can comment on that if you want to, but that's how I feel about it.
I'm going to go next. I'm just going to talk about the goals and my reason for doing this and doing this basically. So again, a lot of people came after I spoke earlier. I am new to the Evanston area. I've been here for 2 years. I don't really know people. I've heard, you know, people say that they do stuff to get out and meet people. I've been here for 2 years. I think I know maybe 10 people. But as I said before, I'm right here at Emerson and Hartree. One of the incidents over the weekend was right here. The other one was right here on Emerson. I was home during both. I have 2 small children, and we all were home during both. One of them was in the middle of the night, but the other one was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't come outside, but I heard the ambulance and stuff. I think I was in my house working, doing something, so I couldn't come out to be nosy. But someone who did come over here just turned the corner, like just went to the corner and looked down the street, said there's kids still playing outside. That's a problem for me. And my number one thing is senseless gun violence, because a lot of it, even though we haven't, I'm not going to say we, because I don't know, and I don't want to lie, but as far as I know, there hasn't been any accidental kids being killed or, you know, but that's still a problem. Like, in broad daylight, for any parent to not be able to walk out their house, for a grandmother to walk in her living room and see her grandchild, like, that's not okay. And no, like, that is my number one problem. That is why I would not be silent. That's why we are here. That's why I organize, because that it should not be okay for anybody. And after this, I do want to speak about some of the things that I was told. You know, it's not no point in you doing this. Nobody's going to stop. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to this and the third. I've heard so many reasons of why I should just cancel it. Oh, you going to go up there and you going to get shot up next. Like, it's anything but. People are getting shot up in their own homes. People are getting shot up walking out their doors accidentally. Like, was it 2 weeks ago, a 7-year-old little girl was shot in her own home because the bullet went through the wall in Chicago. Not doing nothing is not an answer. It's not. It's like, I don't care how little this today meant. It's something. So for me, that is why I came here. So again, like I said, this is the first conversation of many. It was a little bit last minute. As I said, I don't know too many people, so I wasn't expecting like the hugest crowd. But this is the first one. My plan is to have them over and over again. Like I said, I know that Evanston had a community organization where the community came together before. I wasn't told the name, but they said that it kind of turns into that again. I will be happy. I just want something to the community to keep coming together. And as someone was saying before, like I said, this is a community thing. The community needs to come together to deal with what's going on in our community. So it's not just a stop of the community. One thing is automatically going to trickle over onto the other one. So if you want to come, you want to bring black parties for, I mean, not party, whatever, like events where the community actually come together. And I also wanted to say, since the mayor was here, I personally did not look up what defund the police meant in every aspect of it. But one of the things that I said on one of my lives before is I truly believe a part of defund the police, we need to make it mandatory, whether our police officers need to be out of those cars and in our communities coming to events. We need to have events like this where we're coming into the community. The police need to be here, whether they're in plain clothes or whether they tickets per quarter. They need to mandatory have these many hours in the. If you truly want to be a police officer and you truly care about your community, you should be able to be in your community without being paid. I want to make sure that these people are okay. Why do you not want to make sure that they're protected? Why do you not want to make sure they trust you? Why do you? Well, why don't you make sure you're okay when you? Hey, I'm officer. Oh, you know, I know who you are. Like, you were speeding. Oh, okay. Upset about it, but that's why it's mandatory, and I think that we should fight for that, and that's why I'm asking my know our faith. We should not be scared. We shouldn't be fearful of them. We should not know who they are at all.